guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome officially to the channel. This is a new series where we're going to look into the history of various different ways that developers have made to interact with video games. Today, we're going to take a look at a little device from the 90s that some of you may know and others may not, the Sega Activator. Now, the Activator was an unusual device that appeared in the early 90s with the promise of making kids of the day feel more like they were actually doing moves. The idea was that you would punch and kick your way to victory using the IR sensors of each segment of the octagonal device you had on the ground. 4 of the panels would correspond to the directions on the D-pad, while 2 in the front would correspond to the C and B buttons respectively. The 2 in the back left and the back right would represent A. Hitting both at the same time would actually hit start. You can already kind of see the problem that while it was supposed to register movement, it really only registered the button mappings, making it essentially a physical way of using the controller. It did, however, have a few extra features that made it somewhat more interesting. It had a high and low beam that, if a game was set up for it, would allow you to do different actions by breaking the high beam or the low beam, giving it particular actions for that. It also had a certain combination of moves. For example, breaking beams on panels 1 and 7 would do a rapid attack to the left, or, just attack diagonal left. This was just one example of the special action. There were a whole host of these that the unit was capable of doing if the programmers decided to take advantage of it, making it potentially a very interesting device. However, it did have a few issues. Setup on the device could be something of a slog, quite frankly. You'd have to set up all the panels on the floor, 5 feet away from the console, and not in a room with a fluorescent lighting, low ceilings, or vaulted ceilings. You also had to be outside the unit when you first booted it up and wait on the console for about 20 seconds for it to boot up, roughly 3 feet away, and wait there till you could step inside. This is so the unit could actually calibrate itself. Only then could you actually step inside and use the ring. On top of this, each time you turned off the system or swapped games, you would have to repeat this exact same process. You were also warned not to use it in a room with a skylight or wear shoes with dark soles, sharp heels, or step on the actual panels themselves. Phew. This is a lot of things to remember to play something that's basically just a physical ring. It also had one other large issue. It was $80. So to buy this at retail made it almost expensive as buying 2 Genesis titles. This, along with it seeming more like a gimmick, made it rather rare to find in someone's home. So you can imagine the amount of effort that the developers put into making games that had unique controls for this thing. In fact, I could only find about 3 games that were specifically programmed for it at all. And that was Eternal Champions, Mortal Kombat, and oddly enough, Comix Zone. Even though the device didn't get utilized too much on the Genesis itself due to scarcity in people's homes and just the expense of the unit, it wasn't a total loss. The infrared technology would go on to see a resurgence in the arcade of all places. Sega decided to put it to use in another fighting game, Dragon Ball Z VRVS. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this game, that's not a surprise. It was really only released in Japan. Unlike the home version of the actual sensor, though, the one in the arcade had extra sensors. This was used for better reaction and hit detection so that players' movements would more closely match what was on the screen, making it one of the first successful examples of full body motion sensing. How cool is that? This also wouldn't be the only way this kind of technology would be used. The Wii would later use infrared sensors on its Wiimotes years later. Microsoft would also take a swing at motion controls themselves with the Kinect, using a far more advanced methodology to do the exact same thing that the Activator was trying to do back in the 90s. So it seems that console developers just can't get enough of trying to make us get our exercise in while playing video games. So that's it for the first in the series of odd gaming peripherals. What do you guys think of the Activator? Did any of you have one when you were a kid? Did you pick up one later in life just to try it out? Let me know your experiences and memories in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming.